Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, I will be reviewing the Shadowlands Beta Mistweaver Monk, going over what are some of the cool new things that it's getting. Did anything get returned back to it? Is anybody going to actually want to invite you to a raid? All of this going to be included. My main priority with these reviews is to go from the perspective of how long can I play this specialization without getting bored? Because a main concern for me is that Shadowlands is going to be incredibly grindy and you're going to be committed to one character. Hopefully not one specialization on top of that, but I am still worried that it's even one specialization you'll be kind of stuck with if you want to perform at your best. So I want to make sure that I pick a spec that I'm not going to get bored of 3-5 months down the road, because it's going to be a lot of investment into the gear on your character, powering up your legendaries, leveling up your conduits. It seems like there's this infinite progression model on like 5 different systems, so that is my main priority. I care about performance. Like, I don't want to be a meme, so I don't want to be in a bucket of specs where I'm just never invited to anything. I would like to avoid that, so I'm taking it into consideration when I notice it. It still is the early beta, maybe mid-time beta, so tuning is still pending for a lot of things, so it'll be difficult to determine whether or not something will be one of those drastic underperformers. But regardless, let's jump in here. We've got the Mistweaver Monk. One of the new spells that I thought was pretty cool was the Invoke Yulon the Jade Serpent. It's a 3-minute cooldown. You summon Yulon the Dragon, and he kind of spazzes out and jumps around and heals people. So you call him in. He goes bouncy, bounce really fast, and kind of instant transmission all over the place. Nice little 3-minute power cooldown. Fortifying Brew got nerfed. It's 30-second longer cooldown, so it's 2 minutes. It's 5% less damage reduction. It's 5% less maximum health. So you did receive a little bit of a personal defense nerf. And other than that, Mistweaver specific, not really anything changing. And that's kind of maybe a problem with the entire spec in general. There's not really too much. You get Expel Harm, so you'll be able to heal yourself instantly and also do some damage around you. There are some conduits to amplify its effect. This heal is super powerful for Windwalkers in PvP and BFA, so likely in PvP for Mistweaver, you're pretty happy to see this. In PvE, it's just going to be an instant cast heal along with a little bit of extra damage. Interestingly enough, all monks are getting Touch of Death. It's a 3-minute cooldown now that effectively works as an execute. You will just instantly kill a creature if it has less health than you, but if it's a powerful monster or raid boss or dungeon boss or a player, it's only going to do its damage when the target is below 15% health, but you get this big nuke that you might move in. In PvP, I see this being very valuable. In PvE, it might have its place to just rush down a specific mob. If there's a really high priority monster that needs to get bursted down, you've got this execute as a result to take it out, so it's pretty nice. Nothing really changing aside from that, and that was kind of like the big lackluster point for the spec, was that not a lot is changing. Your spinning crane kick is limited now to 6 targets rather than being able to hit all of them. And that's pretty much it for your baseline spells. When you look at your talents, again, I could probably stare at this with a blank stare, like nothing changed. Well, one thing changed. Because Conflict and Strife is going away, they've decided to bake Way of the Crane along with Chi Ji into this one talent. But they've also deleted Way of the Crane as an honor talent, although you weren't really taking it in PvP and BFA, because when it became available in PvE, they had to nerf it so badly that it just became totally useless in PvP. You never took it. I think it's probably still, it's going to just be the case that you don't get Way of the Crane, period, in PvP. You already don't take it in BFA, but it's absolutely not a choice. This might be great in raids, Mythic Plus content, to try and get some extra damage out, as it will turn all of your physical attacks. To increase the effectiveness of all your physical attacks, you may be able to pair up a legendary with it. When we get to the legendary section, that would amplify this. Maybe with the legendary, you could make it work. The main problem is that it's twice the cooldown of Way of the Crane, 2 minutes up from 1 minute, and it's competing with Jade Statue. With PvP, Jade Statue is excellent. So in PvP, perhaps in PvE, it might be a nice go-to. It's going to be a lot of extra utility. You've got Chi and Yulon to call in on these big cooldown timers for specific mechanics. But in PvP, I think you're probably still running the Jade statue. No new and exciting honor talents, so it's a bit of a letdown in that regard. If you liked Mistweaver and BFA, pretty much going to continue to be mostly the same. Let's look at the covenants. So for the Necrolords, we've got nice little undead transmog. One little loose limb going off to the side here with some nice little spikes. Really like the shoulders and the helmet. Probably would transmog the other parts of it away, but I do like these shoulders a lot. Coolest mount in my opinion. Of course, that's subjective bias, but nice little undead triple-tailed skeleton bull goat. I don't know. Fleshcraft. So you'll be able to channel a shield. Over time, you can talent into making it so you're immune to crowd control while you're channeling it. It could have super niche usage in PvP or to avoid specific mechanics in PvE when you can anticipate them happening, like AoE stuns that are unavoidable. You could channel this with the ultimate form and immune that crowd control moment, so it may have niche uses in PvE as well as PvP. At the moment, after a tuning phase, Bone Dust Brew is doing massive healing. As to whether or not it's actually going to remain that way, when you look at some conduits and some legendaries paired up with it, it is absolutely nutty throughput. Effectively, you just, I'll show you what it looks like in a second, but you're going to throw this cask of brew. If your raid is stacked up, this is where this ability really shines. I think a little bit less in PvP when you've got maybe 2 or 3 targets to hit as opposed to 10 plus. It's much more valuable in raid. But you will coat all the targets, and then all of your heals have all your heals and your damage have a 35% chance to hit a second time. So it's kind of like a Wind Fury for your heals and for your damage. And your Mastery Gust of Miss will heal targets with your Bone Dust Brew for an additional amount. So it's a massive AoE heal, and I believe these guys let you try out their Covenant abilities. So if you want to see the Fleshcraft Shield, you'll channel it. You can talent it, so you'd be immune to crowd control while channeling it, and for 4 seconds afterwards. And then the Bone Dust Brew itself, you're going to lob it down in a circle. Pretty small radius, so you definitely want to make sure you're hitting targets that are stacked up with it. And then while they're stacked up, you can pump out all of your healing, and it's just going to duplicate it to anybody that was hit. And then same goes for any of the damage. I did not realize that training dummy attacks. But at the moment, this is a really good one in raiding. I would say that it's also going to be strong in Mythic Plus. It may fall off in PvP, but the fact that it's a minute cooldown, you can just lob it in onto your DPS. Maybe if you're playing with melee cleaves, so like Demon Hunters, Death Knights, that type of stuff. But if you're playing with spellcasters that are spread out in PvP, it increasingly loses its value. In Battlegrounds, it would be strong, just getting a lot of extra immediate healing onto multiple targets. So that's the Necrolords. I would say they're looking like a strong contender at the moment, but of course, if tuning happens and it gets reduced in its power, and then we never see it again. But I think it's a pretty cool spell. It's an interesting mechanic. Nice little kind of skill cap on how you aim it and target around it. So it's pretty cool in my mind. For the Venthyr, you're going to get this nice little leather transmog, little bat wings. I kind of like the shoulders. Not the biggest fan of the set, but of course, I believe these transmogs also level up as you gain more Revere or whatever with your Covenant. So I think the transmogs get beefier and beefier. Could be wrong. Their mount is really creepy. Like, I don't know. It just looks like an actor from, like, one of the creepiest looking actors from Hollywood's face attached onto a bear rat. It's pretty creepy. If you like that, go for that. You're going to get Door of Shadows. You want more mobility? There's even legendaries that give you mobility. So if you had Venthyr, you just have infinite mobility if you just wanted to roll around the map. So if you're like a casual battleground player, so you don't really care about performance, that could be super fun for you. But the Fallen Order at the moment, which is a 3-minute cooldown, you open up a portal, and every 2 seconds, a spirit comes out of it. It's RNG, right? So each one of these spirits will either be a tank, a DPS, or a healer. If you want throughput and you're a Mistweaver, you only care about getting the Crane Order Fallen coming out to heal. But if you RNG all Tiger Adepts, I mean, I guess damage isn't bad in Mythic Plus. It's not bad in Raid either, but it's just the RNG element of it on a 3-minute cooldown makes it a little bit unreliable. So we'll test these abilities out as well. So we got the Door of Shadows. You can cast it as a teleport. You can talent it, I believe, also have 2 charges of it, so you could have a ton of mobility. And then the Fallen Order, you're just calling in random monks, right? And then probably going to be punching things as well. So I did manage to get a healing one. I believe this is a DPS one. It's got fist weapons. So depending on how they tune this, or maybe if they could make it consistent, like it went through a rotation, it summons a Mistweaver one, it summons a Windwalker one, and then it summons a tank one, and then it repeats. So then they can reliably tune it. You know how much value you're getting out of it every time. That might be a cool fix. It's kind of like a super powered mirror images, but it's on a 3-minute cooldown. So it better do a lot. The fact that it's got this downside of heavy RNG on top of being a 3-minute cooldown, not so great in my mind. In PvP, I suppose, trying to think about all things, right? Not just PvE, PvP. If you summon in the DPS ones at a critical moment, it might be nice, but that Bone Dust Brew would just give you a lot of healing, and if Way of the Crane isn't a thing, I'm worried that Mistweaver's not going to be able to keep up with damage in PvP comparatively to the other healers. You're losing a lot. I'm losing my voice almost as much as Mistweaver's losing their damage in Shadowlands. Here for the Night Fae, we've got Soul Shape. Again, more mobility if you really want it. And you're going to get Phalanx Stomp, 30-second cooldown. Stomp the ground, deal damage and heal allies, so just an instant, immediate AoE heal. Your abilities have a 6% chance of resetting the cooldown while fighting on the Phalanx. So if you're going in for that kind of Chi-Ji Crane build, you could reset the cooldown of this. It seems like it's kind of directly competing with the Bone Dust Brew, and the Bone Dust Brew has these other cool effects other than just it heals and has a chance to heal again with it. So it's kind of almost a little bit more boring version of the same thing, but we'll try it out here. So we got the Soul Shape, turns you into a little ghost Vulpin. I think there's other forms too if you want to look like other animals, but you just teleport around. And then you got the Phalanx Stomp, so you're going to be able to just drop this down on the ground, and then if you punch or whatever, press your buttons, it has a chance to reset it. So see if I can even get a reset on it, just randomly pressing. I'm not even getting a reset, I don't think. So it still would be, I guess it's down for a long time. So maybe if you can manage to stay on the Phalanx, you'll get to reset it a lot. There, I think I got a reset. Maybe it's bugged a little bit. Looks like I got a reset. Maybe because I didn't pick it, it's not letting me use it again. So if so it's got huge downsides compared to that Bone Dust Brew, because the Bone Dust Brew is just you hit it once and on everybody and then it applies to them, whereas this is you're stuck on the ground. You're stuck in one spot wherever it spawns, and it looks like it can be bigger or smaller. So this has the downsides of the RNG effect of the Venthyr, no benefit unlike the other ones that you would get from the Bone Dust Brew, and reliably having everything stay in one spot in all content is really difficult. So I feel like this one's going to fall off pretty heavily for Mistweaver in all content. It's kind of cool, but it looks awesome, but functionally I'm a bit worried about it. Kyrian, we got over here, we got the Angels. Oh wait, I didn't show the mount of the Transmog. I'm sure that we all care about that a lot more, right? I mean, it's part of the fun. You want to make sure you look good. Apparently they don't have Transmog available. You get a nice little ghost goat. Well, it's actually not a ghost goat. This is a fairy goat. We got the Kyrian. The Kyrian are the Angels. Look at that, man. That is a beefy looking monk. Get your little tiger. Not a big fan of the tiger mount just because it kind of looks like the store mount, that Guardian one. It's just like an armored version of it. But regardless, you get the Steward, which will give you a vial. You can remove bleeds, poisons, diseases, and curses with it. Very effective, assuming that they enable it in PvP. I feel like there's no way they don't. So you could prevent yourself from feral druids, rogues, warlocks. Because warlocks in PvP are getting Curse of Tongues baseline, that will be really annoying for you because you can't dispel it unless you're playing with something that can remove curses. So being able to remove that yourself with this is going to be a lot of utility in PvP. In PvE, if it dispels Grievous, it could be pretty good. There are mechanics in dungeons where you need to remove curses, so being able to just remove it off of yourself. This is raids too. It's just a nice little bit of instant utility in that regard for across all across the game. Weapons of Order, 3,500 mana, 2-minute cooldown. For the next 30 seconds, your mastery is increased, so just some extra passive healing. Additionally, Essence Font's cooldown is reset instantly and heals up to 6 nearby allies. So it seems like this is aimed at raiding, right? More than anything, because your Essence Font would be healing multiple targets in the raid. It's going to be proccing your mastery. So it seems a little bit less valuable in PvP, but let's just look at this. So you'll be able to call in the guy, a little Swolken. He comes and delivers you a vial, I believe. Maybe he hates me. Maybe he hates me. He's not going to give me a vial. I guess I have to join them to get the vial. That's unfortunate. So for the Weapons of Order, for the next 30 seconds, your mastery is increased. So we'll just transform temporarily and then heal ourselves probably. I should have done Soothing Mist first. Okay. So you just get extra healing. Your Essence Font will be super powered. Again, this is kind of just competing similarly with everything else, right? I would say that this is more reliable. It seems like the Night Fae would be the least reliable, as you have to stand on the Fae line to really benefit from it. Bone Dust Brew's cooldown is only a minute. It's really good synergy in PvP and PvE. The Venthyr one was a little bit too RNG heavy. I'm worried that Mistweaver is going to struggle to deal damage in PvP. Probably not so much in PvE, because in PvE you don't have to worry about being attacked back. So you can stand on the monsters and attack them. But in PvP, if you're punching warriors, they punch back. And Mistweaver is generally fragile and running away. So it's like a contradictory thing. Does Mistweaver want to be the healer that channels heals from far away, or the healer that gets really close and personal and starts punching things? Seems like it's kind of having an identity crisis, at least for PvP. But here we go. Let's take a look at the legendaries. Fatal Touch. All monks can get these legendaries. You could get Touch of Death 60 seconds faster. Probably more of a meme than anything if you wanted to go for that one as Mistweaver. Invoker's Delight. You gain 12% haste while you summon Yulon. I feel like you don't really care too much about haste. And then this one probably would be decent for PvP, getting an extra charge of your Chi Torpedo. If you wanted to go Venthyr and get 2 Door of Shadows. Chi Torpedo, Chi Torpedo, Chi Torpedo, Door of Shadows, Teleport. I mean, I don't think anybody's catching up to you. If you really want to do that, you can do that. And the last legendary for general, not available. Mistweaver specific. This is the one that's interesting me the most. It's basically Eminence. Ancient Teachings of the Monastery, your Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick. Heal for 100%, 120% damage done to an ally that's injured. So if you wanted to go to that Punch Monk style with Eminence, you could get a legendary to do it. The builds that I'm imagining, though, based on the Covenants here as we saw them with Bone Dust Brew, because it duplicates your heals, you could Vivify, and then you would have a chance to duplicate that on 2 targets. That seems really good for PvE. In PvP, you don't use Vivify too much. You just run out of mana if you use it too much, but in PvE, it seems good. So I'm curious if there's anything that's going to amplify Vivify, but this is bringing back that old Eminence playstyle. Clouded Focus, healing with Enveloping Mist or Vivify while channeling Soothing Mist, increase their healing done by 15% and reduce their mana cost. So that's insane synergy. Getting Vivify, healing more, and reduced mana cost, and it stacks. That seems really good, especially with the Bone Dust Brew. Tear of Mourning, your Renewing Mist also applies extended life to the initial target, instantly healing them and increasing all healing done to them by 15%. When you heal with Enveloping Mist or Vivify, 50% of the heal is also applied to targets with your extended life effect. So a lot of AoE healing potential here for raids, and not too great for PvP likely. I feel like the Eminence one, it could end up saving the Punch Monk playstyle maybe. Depends on how it's tuned. Yulon's Whisper, activating Thunder Focus Tea, causes you to exhale the breath of Yulon, healing up to 6 allies. I've seen this before, just a little bit of extra healing, AoE healing when you activate your buff. Kind of just meh. It's not super exciting to me for Mistweaver. The punch style one, I'm eager to try. This Clouded Focus one with Bone Dust Brew could be insane. The idea of like Wind Fury on healing is interesting. I don't think that's ever been, maybe on a couple of heals have duplicated in the past, or maybe with honor talents, but seems like a cool, unique effect. It's got good synergies with legendaries. We've got conduits left to go over. These are a new feature to Shadowlands. They're basically just gem sockets. I kind of think of them almost like Azerite traits, but you get to plug them in based on what you get into your like Azerite Covenant tree or whatever. I'm trying to draw parallels for people to help understand a bit there, but they're basically just gems, and you'll be able to level them up. So you want to make sure you're picking the gem that is going to benefit you the most, because you're going to commit time to power it up. Jade Bond, potency is healing output for healers. So abilities that activate Gust of Mist reduce the cooldown of Invoke Yulon. So you get your Jade Serpent a little bit faster. Probably good for raids. I'm not sure how valuable Yulon's going to be in small content, like 3 targets and less, like arenas. But I think it would be pretty good for raids. Okay for Mythic Plus, and probably awesome for Battlegrounds. Just getting that extra healing out. Nourishing Chi. Life Cocoon increases healing over time, received by an additional 15%, and this bonus lingers for an additional 6 seconds after the shield is broken. In PvP, I feel like Mistweaver doesn't struggle with single target healing so much, and this is what it would be benefiting, because Life Cocoon's only on 1 target. Maybe heavy raid healing, like a tank, if you needed to, but I think other healers do that already better, so it would be a lot less throughput in terms of like parsing a high number on pad healing or spot healing, so might not have a great place. Rising Sun Revival. Rising Sun Kick reduces the cooldown on Revival by 1 second, and Revival heals targets for 10% of Revival's heal. So if you want that Eminence legendary and you're punching and kicking a lot, you'd be getting your Revival back a little bit faster. You'd be getting extra heals from it. You'd be able to AoE Dispel. There were changes to affixes for Mythic Plus that do enable Mistweaver a bit more, like being able to dispel bursting, I believe. So you could use Revival to remove bursting off everything, then try and reduce its cooldown to keep consistently removing it. That's a nice bonus with that affix change for Mythic Plus. Resplendent Mist. Gust of Mist has a 30% chance to do 25% more healing. Really great synergy with Bone Dust Brew. As it's already healing for an extra amount, so extra amount. That this seems like a really good one for all content. These are Covenant specific, so they'll be buffing your spell. The Weapons of Order for Kyrian, the duration is increased, so you have a lot longer with the Mastery buff, and the Mastery buff is higher. So it still seems like most of these are competing with each other, except Fallen Order, which is just seemingly this random one. But let's see what it does to the random one. Monks deal 20% more damage and healing, so just trying to buff them up. I still feel like some consistency in the order, so you're guaranteed a certain amount of value from it. Then you don't run the risk of this one where you got tank ones only, or then someone else got healing ones only and they were insane. So just adding some like consistency to it would be a good way, and then tuning it so it competes with the other options. Bone Dust Brews, shadow damage or healing is increased, so extra healing on the effect. And when Bone Dust Brew deals shadow damage or healing, it reduces the cooldown. That's insane. What do you mean? That's insane. The Necrolord is looking like the best one. It's the most interesting one. I feel like there's no way this thing doesn't perform. And then Night Fae, Line Stomp deals 10% additional damage. Nice little big AoE hit, up to a maximum of 50%. Again, still the downside is that the Fae line doesn't move. If the Fae line was attached to the target that you hit and moved with the target, it would be, I would say that it would have a more competitive option than the Bone Dust Brew, because the Bone Dust Brew hits the target and then follows them as a debuff. So adding that as maybe a mechanic might create more opportunity to go for it. But right now, it's just a really pretty one. I'm not sure if it'll be functional unless they just buff the crap out of it, which they could, and then you just have people purposely hold people in your Fae line to get the maximum benefit. Endurance is focused around defense, so Fortifying Ingredients. Fortifying Brew grants you a shield equal to 5% of your health for 15 seconds. This will level up over time, so potentially some nice ways of sort of counteracting the nerfs that happen to Fortifying Brew. Grounding Breath. When casting Vivify on yourself, its heal is increased by 10% and it has a chance to refund its cost. Wait, what? When it's cast on yourself? When you heal with Vivify, you increase their healing and reduce their mana cost. And then if you cast it on yourself and then healed somebody else with it, right, because it heals multiple targets, and then had a chance to double it up with the Bone Dust Brew, that's nuts. That's nuts throughput. Just reading that's nuts throughput in PvE. In PvP, you're not really vivifying too much, but in PvE, that's nuts. Harm denial, like spell harms healing, is increased. Perfect survival healing for yourself. This one kind of encourages you to stand in fire and then heal yourself and then AoE that heal onto other people because it's buffed and it might be free. It's kind of encouraging degenerate gameplay a little bit, whereas the other ones are just focused personal healing. So I wonder if that one will change. Finesse, this is utility. We've got the dizzying tumble. Targets affected by your leg sweep deal 5% less damage. Is that applied immediately when they're stunned? This should be affected after the leg sweep ends, if it's not, because the target's already stunned. It's doing 100% less damage. And if it lasts 5, that's basically the duration of the stun. So half of the duration of this effect is just gone because they can't hit, the target is stunned and can't do damage anyway. So I would like to see the wording on this be that they do less damage after the stun is ended, or if the stun is removed earlier. So if in PvP, if a player breaks out of the stun, then the damage reduction portion. So it'd be really nice as a survival tool for leg sweep. And also Mistweavers don't have a damage reduction cooldown. So on Mythic Plus Trash, you get a damage reduction cooldown with this. This could have a place there, and it levels up. So this would be more damage reduction as you power it up. Pretty interesting conduit. I just hope they change the wording on it to be after the leg sweep is ended or been removed. Lingering numbness. When paralysis ends, your target's movement speed is reduced by 60%. That would level up. Maybe it even turns into a root at some point, depending on how high you power it up. Do you really care that the target is reduced that much? I'm trying to think. In PvE, you don't, I feel like. In PvP, it's usually you're going paralyzed into leg sweep. So they would be stunned while they were slowed anyway in PvP. It's just kind of a bad conduit. Swift transference. Transcendence. Transfer increases your movement speed by 10%. Little sprint effect. Again, under that mobility build on the monk. Getting tons of rolls and the Venthyr teleports and get extra sprint effects. You just want to go fast. You got to go fast. You want to be Sonic. This is going to be a good one. Tumbling technique. Blackout kick has a 5% chance to grant a charge of roll. How often in PvP are you really going to be blackout kicking? If you run the Eminence Legendary and Eminence Legendary ends up being good for throughput, then you would be, and you could roll away, duck in and out of battle. The chance to proc it will go up over time. It would be interesting with an Eminence build to try and make that work. That's where this one's standing out for me. In PvE, probably don't care how many rolls you're getting. You got more than enough, I would think. So it'd be more of a PvP-focused pick there. So what do we think, Mistweaver? We've gone through all the healers. We've got the tier list coming out for all of the healers overall, what I think of them. We've done the tier list for range DPS and melee DPS, and there will be links to those videos if you want to check out my opinions. And I've got all of the class reviews and spec reviews on my channel at the moment, and I'll be linking to them as well if you want to check out the other specs. Mistweaver, not getting a lot changed to it. I'm a bit worried about its identity of being like the punch monk or the sit back and chill monk, because in PvP at the moment it's the sit back and soothing mist monk, but then in PvE I think you're going to be running this red crane and trying to do damage, especially in Mythic Plus. It's likely that it will still be a good performer in Mythic Plus. It's got great utility. Ring of Peace is easily just the best utility in the game for PvE, also PvP to a large degree. So performance-wise, I think it will still be in a good spot for dungeons and PvP. Bit worried about it in raids, but that Bone Dust Brew with the Vivify duplicating heals might be a good way of getting it solid in raids for throughput. It would be, I think, the first time in a long time that Mistweaver would even be close to the top in raids. But if you're interested in PvP, Mythic Plus content, I think it'll be a strong performer. How fun is it? Really depends. I think it could be a lot of fun if that Eminence Legendary ends up being strong, and you do the fist weaving build and playstyle that Mistweaver was known for in the past. I think that could redeem the spec. But I would have liked to have seen some new honor talents. It's really disappointing to just not see too much for them. It kind of just feels like they were like copy pasted over and forgotten. So that's a little bit boring, a little bit of a letdown for Mistweaver. But those are my final thoughts. What do you think? Leave them in the comments down below. Like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this content. The tier list will be coming out shortly. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.